Before we start the video today, I have an announcement to make. Today will be my last weekly video for Altos Research. I founded Altos nearly 20 years ago to bring a new level of analytics and data to the housing market. 2.5 years ago, Altos was acquired by HousingWire, and it's been tremendously beneficial for both companies. I'm now stepping out of the day-to-day operations and handing off to the incredible team at HousingWire, led by my good friend Clayton Collins. I'm confident that the data and the company are in great hands. I'll still play an advisory role and continue to contribute to HousingWire with a monthly column on the market. If you're not a HousingWire subscriber, you should join us. In fact, if you go to housingwire.com, you can see the latest Altos data right on the homepage. You can even check local markets. I will also continue to share regular insights on the housing market via my own social channels, including Twitter and LinkedIn. So make sure you're following me there. And if you'd like to keep up with these, that's where I'll be. I'll also be sharing details about a fun new project I'm working on very soon, so watch out for that. I'm deeply grateful for the team at HousingWire and especially for all you in the audience. I've done these weekly videos every single week for over 5 years with almost no break. And it's been really a labor of love for me. And while I do all the talking in these, what's really happening is that I am learning. So thank you for this incredible opportunity for me to learn and to serve you all these years. Okay, let's get to this week's data. It's a pivotal time in the housing market. There are 3 big trends for this summer's housing market. Number one, unsold inventory of homes on the market continues to grow. There are 33% more homes on the market now than last year at this time. Even the Northeast is growing a little bit. Connecticut finally has inventory growth over 2024. Not a ton, but it tells us that basically everywhere in the country, inventory is climbing. Home prices, number 2, home prices are flat or a tiny bit below 2024. Supply is great enough now that home prices in most places are very sensitive and ready to drop if buyer conditions get worse. And the third trend is that for the most of May and June, despite the fact that home buyer demand is still very light, we're likely to see notable home sales gains over 2024. For years, the headline has been home sales are down, but prices are up. The message for the rest of summer is likely home sales are up, but prices are down. Let's get to the details in this week's data. So there are now 768,000 single-family homes unsold on the market. And in fact, there are now more homes on the market than we counted at the beginning of 2019. So inventory is back to pre-pandemic levels. Now, to be clear, that's still not a lot fewer. There's actually still a lot fewer homes on the market across the country than in most of all the last decade, but it's climbing. And the Northeast markets like Connecticut still have relatively tight inventory. So the buildup of homes is mostly across the Sun Belt. This suggests to me that there are likely several more months of inventory growth as the northern markets have a lot of room to expand. So we'll end 2025 back in the much more normal levels of unsold inventory on average across the country. So in this chart, we have the last decade of inventory trends with unsold inventory of single-family homes, and it's really easy to see how the inventory has climbed right along with interest rates over the last 3 years. So 768,000 homes on the market now. That's up 1.5% for the week. It's almost 33% more homes than on the market than last year. At the very right end of the chart, it looks like it's cut off a little bit here. You can see the weekly climb is still heading up. In the old times, the inventory would peak in like August. In the post-pandemic years, the season has stretched and unsold inventory keeps climbing until like October or even November. So this year by Q4, we'll probably have 900,000 single-family homes on the market. There's 768 right now. So if mortgage rates rise like they're doing today, it could even be more than that. The other part of the supply equation is how quickly sellers are entering the market. This week, we counted 76,000 new single family listings unsold, with another 14,000 new listings that are immediate sales. So that's 90,000 total sellers. It's 8% more sellers than a year ago across the country. That's a hefty jump from 2024. It's 5% fewer than last week, a little dip for the week. This mid-May period is when we typically see the most sellers hit the market. So this is it. Like, we're roughly at the peak of housing market for 2025 right now. So if you're expecting some kind of oncoming flood of sellers that will tank home prices, it looks like you're going to have to wait another year. So in this chart, the purple line is the year. Is this year. And we have one more week for home sellers to jump before the Memorial Day weekend. And I expect this coming week will actually have the most new listings for the whole year. We'll have a few good weeks in June after Memorial Day. And then the late season decline starts with the July 4th holiday. We can see here, what we can see here is that that there will continue to be more sellers than last year. But since right now is roughly the peak for the year, there's no sign of any flood of sellers. Nobody's panicking out there. In 2022, the market was totally tanking at this point in the year. So new listings volume kept growing all the way until July, but that's not happening now. So the next week's data, or maybe middle of June, we'll see the most new listings of 2025. And interestingly, the condo market had already slowed by this time last year. So condo new listings volume is about the same as it was last year. So while there are 8% more single family home sellers now than the same week in 2024, condo sellers are about the same, 16,000 newly listed condos unsold this week. On the weekly pending home sales numbers, I've been talking about this coming trend for a while. The year-over-year weekly pending home sales rate is starting to show growth over 2024. This is mostly because last year was super weak and getting slower by midsummer. Last year, there were only 68,000 single-family homes contracts started. This week, we counted 74,000. So the year-over-year growth in home sales for the week is 8.3%. Now, that's not because demand is strong, but because it was so lousy last year at this time. Now, I expect you'll hear the headlines report annual home sales growth for May, even as April finished really poorly. The headlines, though, will finally shift. Cumulatively, year to date, we've still sold almost 3% fewer homes than we had in 2024 through mid-May, through the first 20 weeks of the year. In the chart here, you can see the purple line has been below the blue line from 2024 for most of the year. But this week, there were 8% more transactions than the same week a year ago. Next week, the comparison is easy again, and you can see that in this chart. The purple line for this year is now well above last year's obvious slowdown levels. We'll see one more week with the newly pending single-family home sales, probably in the mid-70s, 75, 76,000 before the mid-Memorial Day holiday dip. The takeaway here is that I'm pretty convinced that home sales are about to consistently report higher than 2024 for at least the next couple months. Now, I keep asking myself, what's the right way to talk about home prices in 2025? Is the headline that home prices are below last year, or is it more accurate to say that home prices are basically unchanged? There are now 9 states where home prices are at or below 2024 levels, so just 9 states, but that includes Texas, Florida, and Georgia, which at below last year prices, which in just those 3 states, that's 35% of the housing inventory in the country. States like New Jersey and Connecticut have rising home prices, but those are tiny parts of the market. The median price of the weekly pending home sales, single family, is now $400,000. That's just a tiny increase from a week ago and is just 0.25% more than last year. Home prices nationally are basically unchanged from last year. The last 2 weeks came in below 2024. This week is just above tiny fraction above. Seasonally, home prices of the weekly pending home sales are roughly at their peak. Sometime in the next few weeks, prices will begin the long seasonal decline. In 2022, prices peaked earlier in the year because mortgage rates were rising rapidly. In 23, the opposite was happening, so prices didn't peak until July. Last year, rates spiked in May, so prices peaked early in May. This year, rates have been inching higher. They're definitely not improving buyer demand. So at this moment, there is no action to push prices up from here. Therefore, look for the 2025 peak in home prices to be sometime in May or maybe early June, right about $400,000 where we are today. I do a Twitter poll once a month on people's expectations for home price changes for the year. There are a lot of folks out there who read these slightly negative home price trends as an indication of a coming crash. And as always, there are people who expect home prices to crash. And so I've got news for you, though, that ain't happening in 2025. Even though the news right now is that by some measures, home prices are a little below last year at this time. That's it. It's a little below. There is no signal that home prices are dropping. And the actual signal is that home prices are very sticky. Demand is light. Supply is growing. So there's no upward pressure on home prices. But there's no catalyst for a home price crash unless we have like some major economic catastrophe. And while this economy has a lot more risk of some crazy shock than we're used to, the shock is not in the data yet. Employment is good. Inflation is still pretty good. Home prices might end 2025 below 2024, but it's still on the order of a couple percent, not a crash. And we can reinforce this forecast by looking at the price reductions. Price cuts are on the rise again. This is an indication that while home sales are likely to keep increases, home prices are not. There is more supply in most of the country and that not that much demand. So 37.4% of single-family homes on the market have taken a price cut. That's up 60 basis points for the week. At this point in the home buying season, price cuts are almost always climbing. These are the folks who listed their house in like March and haven't had offers yet. But because there are so many more homes on the market in much of the country, that seller competition is greater. And so more sellers decide each week to cut their asking prices to stimulate demand. So at this pace, over 40% of the market in June will have had a price cut. Home prices are not going higher from here. Now, this trajectory can change quickly. For example, if we had a notable dip in mortgage rates, that's what happened in last September. You can see that in the blue line here for 2024 in this chart. But 2025 has been really a huge disappointment for home buyers with stubbornly high mortgage rates all year long. If economic conditions conspire to get us a nice dip closer to 6% for the 30-year fixed mortgage, then you'll see a lot of pent-up buyer demand jump into action. That'll keep a lid on price reductions and will maybe end the year with slightly positive home price appreciation. The lesson, though, from the last 3 years is that you can't bank on mortgage rates falling, unfortunately. Well, folks, that's the last of my videos for Altos Research. I've done over 250 of these. The big lesson here is that no matter what your expectations are, we have to let the data tell the story. Don't let your story dictate the data. I appreciate all of you. I hope that you connect with me on social media so we can stay on top of the data together. If you need to communicate about the housing market with buyers and sellers, you should go to altosresearch.com and sign up so you can do this kind of work with your clients for yourself. Thank you, everyone.